Depending on which facet of the retail industry you are in, inventory can be a very important thing to the success of your business. Inventory can mean a lot of things, but today we're talking about specifically knowing how much inventory you actually keep in stock. I think that your inventory, the amount of inventory that you hold and the amount of money that's typically in your bank account is probably a very similar amount. If your business has a lot of charge accounts and things like that, of course, it might differ. However, controlling your inventory, I think, is one of the foundational things to running a business. So in this episode, we're going to talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of inventory, some things that we at our business, Cook Feed and Outdoors, had success with, some of the things that make inventory fun, some of the things that make inventory dreadful, ways to have successful inventory nights or mornings or all-day events. And some of advice that I have of somebody that has been doing inventories now for more than 13 years, I'd say 13, 16 years now. I have been doing pretty hardcore inventories of hundreds of thousands of dollars of counting. So this is just a 101 foundation podcast about controlling your inventory, and I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Better Business Podcast, where we help you improve your family-owned retail business. I'm with my co-host today, Chris Fox from Fox Strategy, the marketing genius. And my name is Steve Cook. I'm a third-generation business owner, and with the things I've learned and talk about on this show, I've taken my family's retail business to over $10 million in sales. Now let's get to the show.
If you're running a retail business, maybe your family's retail business, there's a lot that you have to learn to do. That's why we made this podcast, in fact, to help you grow a better business for you, your family, and your customers. So I thought we should talk about a necessary evil in the retail world. We call it inventory. Steve, you've grown your family's business from where you guys started to more than 10 million a year now in revenue. I'm sure you've had to count your inventory at least once or twice, right?
Once or twice, and once or twice is more than I want.
Yeah. So let's kick this off. I thought we could ask the important question: why is inventory so crucial to the success of your retail business?
Well, I would equate it to the same thing as your bank account. And your bank account, if you don't know where your money is coming in or how much is coming in and where it's going out, I would equate it to reconciling each of your locations monthly. That is, I think most business owners would agree that is a foundation of your business, because you need to, if you don't, it's similar. I would liken it to playing a sporting game, or any sport game that you don't have the score. If you didn't know what the score was, you wouldn't know how aggressive you need to be. You wouldn't know how defensive you need to be. You wouldn't know, it changes the way that you typically play the game. And I think that that's the same way your books does. If you are slowing down in your growth, you probably need to spend a little more money on marketing. If you are overwhelmed and you're growing really fast, but your labor is down and you're all stressed out and you keep losing employees, you might need to hire some more people. And I think reconciling your books is extremely important. Well, inventory is also very important because just like your bank account sits on top of your business as the way that you have, it's where your money sits, so does inventory. Inventory is just, I think of it as a different bank account. So your one bank account holds cash, your other bank account holds the products that you've paid for. And so if you don't know, just like your bank account, a lot of people would be flabbergasted to say, do you want the bank to know how much money you have? You also need to be very aware at all times of how much inventory you have and which inventory is moving well, which inventory is not moving well, and all of those things.
And unlike a bank account where you keep your cash, when you have your bank account for your inventory, stuff can go bad. Things can get shoplifted and stolen. Little bits of it float away and mysteriously disappear, or have to be, damaged and removed. So it'd almost be like if your bank account had random dollars, that corrupted and went missing, you'd want to know, and so you'd check it pretty often. Speaking of, how often do you think retail owners should to do inventory? Is it the same for everyone? Is it different?
I believe the IRS, at least, I think, says that you should do it once a year for tax purposes. I'm pretty sure that's like an actual law, which, I mean, I'm sure not everyone does that. But we do, I mean, just like personally speaking, we do it twice a year, full inventories. And so that means we count every single thing in our business at the same time. Mm-hmm. And then we do cycle counts at different times. I don't know if I'm like other people. There's times where I'm extremely motivated around certain things, and there's times where I'm not. So there's times where we cycle count every week. There's times where we cycle count, once a month. But cycle counting means that you're not counting every single product in your store, but you're just counting a certain area. So for us, it might be like we count all of our horse feed, or we count all of our products in our warehouse, or we count all of the dog food or whatever. So we do cycle counting throughout, but we do 2 full inventories each year. And I think that is very, very dependent on how many products you carry. We carry anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 products. And a lot of people that carry way more than that, 1 full inventory a year might be overwhelming. But for like a restaurant, I remember when my parents had restaurants growing up, we would do inventories once a week. And so, full inventories, because it only takes 15 minutes, and it kind of, it also helps you with your ordering and things like that. So, so twice a year is our deal.
Sounds like lots of really helpful data and information can flow out of an inventory as well. Like you've just mentioned, it impacts your taxes, it impacts what you order, it impacts probably even how closely you have to watch, your security. It can really inform a lot of those decisions that you make throughout each month. If you have a smaller inventory and are able to count it more often, you're just going to get really fresh data each time.
Yeah, I think that inventory helps with 3 areas. It helps with theft and theft prevention, because by doing an inventory, you can catch if someone is stealing the actual product. But also in most people's point of sale systems, there's a way to do returns. And so you can do a return, which would keep the product in stock. But then you take the cash out. But by doing an inventory, you can actually catch that if you're way off on a certain product. So it helps with theft in those 2 ways. I think that it also helps in knowing what products are moving slower than others and what products are really flying off the shelf, which you can get reports and stuff like that, of course, that show you that. But then also I think it helps in your operations would be the 3rd way. Operations meaning that you might not be getting stolen from, but maybe we keep forgetting to ring something up, or we keep forgetting to charge a customer for this or that because it's like a weird add-on sale, or maybe we change our practice of this was a big problem for us. We would go deliver products a lot of times out of a desire to try to be quick for the customer and then ring it up later when we got back. Well, we kept having it where we forgot to ring the customer up when we got back, and you're talking $5,000 sometimes, and we forgot to charge them for it. And so inventory helps you catch those things, because you're like, man, why am I off on 4 by this? Oh, wait, that's funny. That customer always gets that. You go back and look if you rang them up and you forgot. So inventory helps you catch those 3 things, I think, and keeps all those on track.
Yeah, what a great check to across all of those areas to just stop and make yourself think through any anomaly, anything that's a little odd. So, well, you mentioned while we were before we started recording that you loathe doing inventory, and I can imagine. I can definitely imagine.
I do.
What do you recommend for someone who hates inventory the same way? I mean, how have you either gotten yourself to like it more, or at least tolerate it? What would you recommend to someone who feels that way?
So first, I mean, inventory has been I don't know if I hate the actual inventory, the process of it, as much as the feelings and the emotions around it. Because a lot of bad things have happened around inventory. We found out we've lost thousands of dollars before. We found out we've been getting stolen from by an employee that worked for us for several years before by doing inventories. We found, that. So maybe not the actual active inventory, because it's pretty chill. You put in some headphones and you do it after hours, and it's not, super, it's just kind of boring, I guess. But I think it's the emotions around inventory. It's stressful, and can give you a lot of anxiety. I think that's why a lot of people hate it. But if you hate doing inventory, I would say that it is probably either because of those emotions or because you have not set up systems to help with it. Meaning technology, with everything having barcodes now, if you're not utilizing barcodes, or perhaps your products don't have barcodes, using some sort of technology to help you do it faster. I know for years we resisted putting the UPCs in of all of our products, because as you can imagine, having to scan 2,000 different products, that is extremely time consuming. But boy, it took hours and hours off of inventory, because you can just scan stuff now instead of we used to flip through. We'd print off pages. We'd print off 30 pages and go through individually, try to find the products. I think that what can I do today that would save time on my inventories for years to come? If you will put in some hours of work to get a system in place that it might help you, would be one piece of advice. The other piece of advice is to maybe ask for a little bit more help. We don't use every employee we have when we do inventories, because it's crucial that you get accurate counts and stuff, and that's not some employees' strong suits. But we definitely overstaff for inventories. We overstaff for people helping customers that day, so that way we're not, bothered by, helping back and forth on customers. We overstaff on the amount of people counting, and we're running into each other everywhere. So I would say overstaff and get as much help as possible, and then try to double down on your technology.
So that's advice for someone who hates doing inventory, but it also sounds like advice to make a great inventory, a success. If you could have technology and you make sure that you've staffed enough help for that day.
Yeah, I would say if you want to have a successful inventory, it's all about the organization. It's kind of like doing a big project at home, or anything. It seems like the more time you take getting all the things you need, the more time you take making sure that everything is in place before you start. And I would say the inventory is very, very dependent on people's point of sale systems, or however they track their inventory. It's hard to give like very specific advice, but with ours, you have to get all of your invoices or your purchase orders into your system first. You have to get, things like that in order, your paperwork in order. And then, the people in the stores will spend weeks getting things prepared, getting boxes counted. We do lots of what's called pre-counting. And for an example, we typically have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 tiny little needles. We sell like some medications and stuff for animals, and so we carry needles. And so sitting there counting, at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, 2,000 needles is like, you just want to like poke your eyes out with a fork. And so we do what's called pre-counting. So we'll go around with Post-it notes, the 2 days leading up to something that won't sell a lot, as long as you won't sell it, or set back a bunch of it, set back 1,000 over here and just have, 40 that you need to count on the day of inventory. So I would say pre-counting and organization and getting all your ducks in a row would be paramount to having a successful inventory.
Yeah, that's some great advice. I mean, probably like anything in life, but making sure that you've set yourself up for success with organization. But then the pre-counting sounds great. Get out of the way what you can, before you have to actually show up and count the real things on the shelves, not knowing how many sold that day. So when you finish your inventory that day, you have a moment in time of an accurate count of everything you have in your product bank account.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, that's how important it is, man, because you want to know how much cash you have in your bank. I think that it is equally important. I've seen a lot of people do this, and we actually considered closing down early and like doing some other things.
Yeah.
With our system, we just figured out a way that we can kind of do it during store hours. But I've seen a lot of businesses actually close down for inventories or close early for inventories.
Yeah.
And that's how important I think it is too. I think it's worth shutting down for 1 or 2 days a year to know exactly what you've got going on. It is, like I said, it's as important as doing your books, I think. And people typically, I don't think, are super negligent of doing their books, but I think it's equally important for a retail store.
So important that if you're listening and you don't have a system that you can run while you're open, Steve, your advice is shut down for a day or two, however long it takes you to count everything that you've got, and get that hard count accurately of what you've got in your store, in your storage, whatever, because that's how important it is. Give up sales for a day or two, or develop a system that you can run while you're open.
Yeah, and I can't think of a lot of businesses that would have more items than what we probably. It's not that we carry that much, but there's just not a lot of businesses anymore. There's hardware stores and lumber stores that have those little buckets of thousands of screws and nuts and bolts and things like that. That's the other thing that I would say they would probably beat us as far as the amount of things that they're having to count. And grocery stores, of course, but there's some grocery store like big boxes that carry 30 to 40,000 different SKUs. So of course there are places that do, but as far as like small business retailers, family owned retail businesses, I would say kind of the businesses that we have, a few thousand products are the most, and it doesn't take over your life for that long. But man, if you have like a retail, like a smaller boutique or a smaller store, you just have a few hundred products, like don't be lazy with inventory. It can really get you in a bind if you think you have $100,000 and you only have $75,000 of inventory. That can be detrimental to your business.
Yeah, that's a really big gap. Any thoughts on making inventory fun?
We always, or not always, but typically when we do inventory, we've tried to do a few. I'm an early morning person, so I kind of convince some people to do it early. So we don't do this when we do it early, but we always get food, dinner,
nice.
or when we do it late night, we'll do have pizza delivered or something like that, and we just kind of eat in between. We'll take a 20-minute break or something like that, and eat. Or when we do it early in the morning, somebody will go get donuts or something. But that is always nice. I think that a lot of people try to grind through things like that, but when you're counting, I literally, you'll like start seeing double sometimes because you've just been counting for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I mean, you can like start seeing stars at some point. So I think taking breaks, short breaks and stuff like that, and eating, having a little break like that can lift other people's spirits and stuff. And we always do music. Everybody hates my music. They listen to music with words, and people that, when you have like somebody singing words, I love singing, and so I will start singing along to it, and then it makes me miscount.
You've forgotten.
Because inevitably, like whatever it is, like if it's, I just have like a general like a little bit of a knowledge of like all genres, but I listen to music without words, which is typically classical music. Okay. And so everybody else hates that. So I'll listen to like Mozart or something and blast it in my headphones. But yeah, that always makes it fun for me, music and food. And we get shopping carts, and we'll rig up our little shopping carts. We look like hobos walking around because we'll have like cups and drinks and like all kinds of things, sunflower seeds, all kinds of stuff in our shopping carts and our computers. So we look like little hobos walking around our stores counting stuff.
That's awesome. Well, you got to make it fun for sure. Well, so there you have it. Inventory, pretty important to your retail business. And we've given you some ways to make it easier and better for growing your family's retail business. Steve, take us out.
Man, I think that oftentimes in business, I would say in closing, there are things, we've said it so many times, our sales will be up, our store's more profitable, our blah, blah, blah. We've had great success over the last few years, and this sounds funny when I say it, but there is no magic pill, or there is no anything fancy that we did to do that. People ask us, sometimes we'll go to different conferences and things like, man, how did y'all go from 1 store to 3? Or, how did y'all get to this much in sales or whatever? And it's not anything fancy. And things like inventory, when you look at like your bottom line and profitability and actually running a sound, stable business, things like inventory is the things I think of. Good old-fashioned customer service, keeping track of your inventory, only selling stuff you can sell. These are the things that build incredibly large businesses, and it's not fun. It's not fun to do. It's not fun to really even talk about, though, Chris, I feel like we've made it fun. But I don't know if it's even fun to talk about, but yeah, I think these classic old-fashioned business fundamentals are what really can make you successful as a retailer. So even if you dread it, I think it's part of doing business, and it's that hard work that can make you very successful. So thank you for the good conversation today, Christopher, and also thank you for listening to this podcast. If you have found anything that maybe you have a question about, my contact information is in the show notes, and I encourage you to reach out to either of us. Let us know what we should do an episode about. Let us know what you found interesting about this episode, whatever it might be, whatever your form of communication of choice is. I'm sure it's in the show notes below. And so thank you for listening to this episode of the Better Business Podcast.